Hi, guys. Welcome back to another episode of the Chronic Chronicles. I'm your host, Lexi Halloran. Today, I'm really excited to welcome Kate, the host of Thrivabetic, a podcast dedicated to sharing experiences, advice, and support for those with diabetes. Kate's journey with type 1 diabetes has been filled with unique challenges, especially when it comes to balancing blood sugar management and mental health. In this episode, we'll explore her personal journey, the mental and emotional hurdles she's overcome, and the wisdom she's gathered to thrive with diabetes. Let's get into it. To start us off, do you want to give us a brief introduction on just like who you are and what your chronic illness is?
Yeah, so my name's Kate, and my chronic illness is type 1 diabetes. So that is an autoimmune disorder. It's basically where your immune system attacks your pancreas and shuts off insulin production. There's a lot of different types of diabetes beyond just type 1 and type 2, but the type that I have, like, it is most common to get it in your childhood. So I got it when I was
Mm-hmm.
10 years old, but it can happen anytime in your life, really. So.
Yeah, I feel like that's a really big misconception that people don't know is that you can get type 1 later in life too. Like the assumption is that if you are an adult and you get diabetes, it's type 2, but that's not always the case, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely a little bit more rare than like
Mm-hmm.
if you would get it in childhood, but like it definitely happens. And like I've actually like since I joined the diabetic community on Instagram and just like online, I've met a lot more people that like were diagnosed at like 18 or like 25 or 30 or whatever it is. So I definitely hear about it more.
Yeah, not to, I won't get like too far into this because we're still figuring stuff out with me. I don't think I have diabetes. We don't really know, but I had some really weird like blood levels a couple months ago. And yeah, they weren't necessarily like they brought up diabetes and I was like, I'm really confused like how that would even be possible. And I'm like, oh, is it type 2? Like my cholesterol levels are high or something? And they were like, no, like it's not your cholesterol, it's your insulin levels are just kind of weird. And we're like,
Huh.
okay, so we're doing more. I have to get like blood tests every month for a while to try to figure out what's going on. We're figuring that out.
Huh.
But it's
Yeah,
just weird because
strange.
they were like, if we do, they basically were like, we're not ready to diagnose you, but if we do, it would be type 1, not type 2. And I'm like,
Huh.
I'm 26. Like, how would
Yeah.
you not know about this earlier in life?
Yeah,
But
that's interesting. Yeah, because there's even
yeah.
like there's a lot of other ones like there's LADA, MODY,
Mhm.
diabetes. Like there's other like different kinds, which I don't know like all the specifics about, but there's
Yeah.
just different ways that like diabetes can kind of like happen to people. So
Yeah, it's so interesting. So, can you share like a brief background on what I guess like type 1 is for people that may not know, since that's one that you have?
yeah, so it's a autoimmune disorder,
Mhm.
and it, like I said before, it happens when the immune system attacks your pancreas and then shuts off insulin completely. So in type 1 diabetics, they're insulin dependent, which means that we can't survive without having insulin, whether that's like by pump therapy or injections. So it's a
Okay.
lot of management. It's a lot of like counting carbs and figuring out your basal rate for how much insulin your body needs and like just all these different things. It's a lot of management and like learning how it works with your lifestyle as well. But yeah, I think that's like really the overview of it is that like
Yeah.
we can't live without insulin. Like insulin breaks down carbs into energy. So if you don't have insulin, your body basically starves. And that's
Mhm.
why in type 1 diabetes, you lose a lot of weight. Like when you're first diagnosed, that's like a really common symptom because your body is starving essentially.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think that that pretty much covers it.
And then type 2 is insulin resistance, right? Like that is like they're different. Like type 1, your body is not making insulin, correct?
Yeah.
But type 2, your body is technically still making insulin, but it's resistant to it.
Yeah, yep. So in type 2, still making insulin, but your body just like isn't absorbing it properly. And type 2 is genetic a lot of the times. Like it has a lot to do with your genetics. And then like there's a piece of like lifestyle and stuff like that on
Hmm.
top of it. But it's kind of like complicated. That's like another like really common misconception about diabetes just in general is that like it's a big like lifestyle disease and like you get it from like eating too much sugar or like carbs or whatever.
Hmm. Hmm.
Which to some degree that like does play a role, but a lot of times it has a lot to do with your genetics. Like people who aren't overweight can still develop type 2 diabetes if it runs in their family.
Hmm.
So, yeah, there's a lot of misconceptions about it.
Yeah, I feel like you hear a lot about, like diabetics can't eat sugar, which in reality, I think it has more. I mean, obviously, everything breaks down to sugar, like carbs, no matter protein, it all breaks down to sugar. So, yes, but I feel like at least the people in my life that I know with diabetes are watching carbs more than anything. Like they're looking at how many carbs they're eating. Is that?
Yeah, yeah, I mean, see, that's like another like really big like misconception
Hmm.
too is like what we can and can't eat
Yeah.
because people think of it as like I said like a lifestyle disease and that kind of thing. It def like in I mean, for myself, like obviously if you have diabetes, it to some degree makes it easier to manage if you are like eating, I mean, it's if you're eating a healthy diet, like it's better anyways, obviously.
Yeah.
If you're like cutting out sugar and that kind of thing, it can make it easier to manage your blood sugar and that kind of thing. I don't cut out anything out of my diet. Like I really enjoy desserts and like that kind of thing. Obviously, like it takes more like management and more just preparation when I'm like having like carb heavy meals, dessert and that kind of thing. But I can eat whatever I want. I choose to eat whatever I want. It's just that I have to like think about it more.
Hmm.
And it is sometimes easier. Like my blood sugar will stay balanced a lot easier if I have a more like balanced meal where it's like there's like a more even amount of like carbs and protein and fat versus just like very carb heavy or very a lot of sugar, that kind of thing.
That makes a lot of sense. So it's really more of like you have to think more about what you're putting into your meals and kind of how that would affect your blood sugar. Whereas, yeah, I mean, I still feel like food affects me a lot, but I'm not gonna have like a blood sugar crash like in the way that you will. I'll just feel nauseous. So,
Yeah. Yeah, it's just like more preparation and more
mhm.
like understanding how your body specifically like reacts to certain foods or just the different whatever like proportions and macros and that kind of thing.
Yeah, interesting. So you said that you got diagnosed with type 1 when you were 10, right? Can you
Yeah.
share a little bit about like your diagnosis story and kind of what that looked like for you?
Yeah, so I was 10 years old. I was like pretty young. I was obviously like noticing some symptoms. Like I was just feeling super, super fatigued, tired, like just had no energy for anything. And I also was really, really thirsty, like all the time. Like I was just like chugging water and just like I like remember like waking up in the middle of the night and like running to the bathroom and chugging water, that kind of thing. I was also losing weight. I didn't really notice that as much.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just like I never like told my parents like about these symptoms that I was having because I just didn't really know. Like
Yeah,
I
you're
didn't
so
really like
young.
realize that it was weird. I was just like, I don't know, I guess I'm like feeling weird or different. Like I don't really know. And then I ended up going camping with my family on a trip and some of my aunts and uncles came on that as well. And my aunt is a nurse
Mhm.
and she noticed that I was just like drinking a lot of water, drinking like a lot of liquids in general and just like feeling tired and that kind of thing. And also my parents had started to notice too because we had a road trip from like my hometown, probably like 3 or 4 hours away to the campground. And
Okay.
they noticed because I like wanted to stop to go to the bathroom like so many times on the trip and they were just like why do you have to
Yeah,
go to the
like what is
bathroom so
happening?
much? Yeah. So like they definitely like noticed. So when I was on the camping trip, my aunt was like, "Hey, like you need to like take her to a doctor like right away when you get back." Like she's having like a lot of like symptoms of
Yeah.
like this, whatever. So then my parents took me to the doctor and they like did all the tests. My hometown doesn't have like a big children's hospital or even like a big hospital in general. So we got sent like a couple hours away to a children's hospital that had like a unit for pediatrics and
Mhm.
endocrinology. And then we basically just spent the next like 24 hours like learning about diabetes and
Yeah, so
adjusting to that, which
it
was
was
not
pretty
really enough.
immediate then. Like the doctors
Yeah.
were like, "Yeah, she has diabetes."
Yeah. Yeah, very much so.
Where are you from?
I'm from Gaylord, Michigan. It's a small town in Michigan. Do you know where that
Wait,
is?
girl. Yeah, my boyfriend's from Traverse City. I'm from Houghton Lake.
Oh, really? Oh my gosh,
Yeah,
that's so fun. That's
that's
funny.
so weird. We're gonna be in Traverse City in like 2 days.
Oh my gosh, I love Traverse City. It's so pretty.
Yeah, I live in Seattle now,
Okay,
but we have weddings in Traverse City like two in a row. Okay, small world.
seriously.
Interesting. We could have just done this in person.
I know, literally, we should just met up in Detroit. That would
I
have been
know
fun,
what.
actually.
Okay. Anyways, that makes sense. So did you go to U of M or did you go down to like Grand
No,
Rapids?
it was in Grand Rapids. Yeah,
Okay.
the
Yeah.
children's hospital there.
You go to the children's hospital, you get diagnosed. What happens then? Were you in the hospital for like a couple days or?
No, I basically was there for like 24 hours and then I was out. Like I mean, yeah, they don't really like admit you into the hospital.
Mhm.
I mean, when I went and got diagnosed, like I was on like the tail end of like not doing well because a lot of people go into comas and that kind of thing before
Yeah.
they get diagnosed. Luckily, that didn't happen to me, but when I did get diagnosed, I was just like so dehydrated and like so fatigued. When I was there, I passed out
Oh my
like in the middle
gosh.
of the day of like figuring things out. So I was like put on an IV
Mhm.
for like a couple hours and just like hung out in this room basically. And then like my parents went with like a dietitian and like an endocrinologist and stuff like that. And they just did like a bunch of training and learning about diabetes, but I don't know. It's really crazy because, like, obviously you get a lot thrown at you at once because they're like, oh,
Yeah.
here's this like life-changing thing. Like, now you have to like manage all this. And then I don't know. It was just like crazy. Like, I remember like coming home after that and being pretty sick. Like, you kind of get like flu-like symptoms. So I
Yeah.
was just like, I was pretty sick for like probably like 5 days or something. And I don't know, I think that like it was just really hard, like on my parents, on me, because it's just like it's like a big change too. Like I was 10 years old, they're telling me that like I have to take shots like for the rest of my life and like I have to
Yeah.
like prick my finger and like all these things that are like really scary. So
Mhm.
like
A
that was
lot
super
for a
scary to
kid
me.
to
Yeah.
compartmentalize. Like,
Yeah, but then like on top of that, like also like having to figure out diabetes and just not realizing like all of the management that it would take, all of like the learning that it would take. I like my family and I like we just didn't realize like we really had to learn as we went with it because it was like very frustrating at first, like trying to like control blood sugar and like just realizing like, oh, it doesn't always do what you want it to do. Like 1 plus 1 does not equal 2 with
hmm
diabetes, like all the time. It's just like pretty confusing and like sometimes you do everything right, but like your blood sugar still doesn't like
hmm
cooperate or like it was just like learning things like that where we were like what the heck, like we're doing the things that they told us to do, we're counting the carbs, like all these things, like why isn't it like
hmm
doing what we want
I
it to
feel
do?
like
So that was a big adjustment.
it gets really confusing too. Like as I feel like you get diagnosed when you're 10 and then you maybe start, I could imagine, you maybe start to like figure it out and then you go through puberty and things change again because your hormones are in play now, which also affect your endocrine system. So I don't know, I feel like you're ever evolving trying to learn how to like manage this condition. It's not straightforward.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like I'm always learning new things. Like I've had it for 17 years now, but I'm still like learning
hmm
new things just about like diabetes management and like you said, like hormones, stress, like just
hmm
all of these different things that I never knew. And it was hard like growing up too because we just didn't have the resources
Yeah.
that I have now. Like I feel like now I have like a really great community and like I have a great doctor, a great dietitian, that I can like learn a lot from. And I feel like there's just a lot on the internet that I can
Yeah.
learn from. And I mean, there is probably out there somewhat when I was growing up, but like we didn't know and we didn't
Yeah.
like I wasn't like going looking for it. Like
Yeah,
I feel
you
like
didn't know to
Instagram
look
was
for it.
new. I wasn't like on Instagram like looking for like diabetes tips.
Yeah.
So there just
I know, and like
wasn't as much
TikTok didn't
resources.
exist.
Yeah, exactly.
TikTok is so easy to find information, but like I know I
Right.
feel the same way, well, similarly. But for me, I have endometriosis and I was in when I first got my period and was going through high school and like all of this stuff, I was in so much pain, but like I didn't have anywhere to like look. My friends weren't going through the same thing as me. They were like, "Oh, my periods are normal." And they like talk about, they bleed for a couple days and it's fine. And I'm over here like dying. So
Yeah.
I'm like, "Oh." But,
Yeah.
Instagram and like TikTok were not really a thing, so I didn't have anywhere to look for those things. And like
Yeah.
Googling heavy period, I'm gonna die doesn't really help.
Yeah. It's not very like specific or helpful.
Yeah. I know I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know what I have. I don't know what's going on. But I feel like it's kind of the same thing. Honestly, TikTok has kind of been a game changer for
Hmm.
there's a lot of misinformation out there, but there's also a lot of good information too.
Yeah, I mean it's extremely helpful just like because in your circle, like in your community, in your town,
Yeah.
whatever, maybe there's like a handful of people that are like going through the same thing as you. But like to have like a whole community online of like people all over the country, like all over the world that you can connect with and like just them sharing their experiences and how it helped them, like it's just there's
Mhm.
just so much more information out there, which is so helpful.
I know it helps so much. So, how has living with this condition kind of changed over the years from for you, like from your initial diagnosis to now? Like how has that evolved with you? Like I guess your mindset on it.
Yeah, I think it's changed like so much just because like I got it when I was so young, but it was also
Hmm.
like such a like pivotal point in my life that I got it because like 10 years old, like you're like going into puberty, like you said, like you're
Hmm.
like going into like middle school and like trying to fit in like all of that.
Yeah.
So I don't know, that made it really hard. Like it made it really hard on my childhood just in general of like dealing with that because like I said, like I'm trying to fit in, like I'm trying to like
Hmm.
just be like a normal person at school and with how misunderstood diabetes is too. Like it wasn't
Yeah.
something that I wanted to talk to people about because like we're all kids and like I mean, it's not I don't love hearing like, oh, like you can't eat sugar or like or
Yeah.
did you eat too much sugar? Is that how you got that? Like all I don't know, just all those
I
different
know.
things.
I know.
Yeah.
And I feel like you have to be so responsible too at such a young age
Yeah.
because like you have all this I'm sure your parents are like worried about you all the time too when you're at
Hmm.
school and they can't like make
Yeah,
sure you're
exactly.
eating the right things.
Yeah, like I had to take on a lot and like I mean even like there's just so much that has changed. Like the technology has changed so much. I remember like when I first got diagnosed, like they had like an insulin pump and maybe they had a continuous glucose monitor. I don't even remember. I maybe that wasn't a thing yet. I had actually like tried an insulin pump when I was like probably 11. Like it was like pretty
Oh,
early into my
yeah.
diagnosis, but I hated it. It like I don't know. I didn't like it. Like the one that I tried on, it like ripped off when I was doing something. And I
Ow.
think I was just kind of traumatized from that. And so I don't know. I just had a bad experience with it. And I felt like I could hide my diabetes better if I just did like injections and
Hmm.
finger pricks because I could like go away into another room and kind of like hide it that way.
Yeah.
But an insulin pump or whatever it's more like obvious, more noticeable. So I think that that like played a big part in me not trying new technology for a really long time. Like I got on an insulin pump when I was like 20 or 21, I think.
Hmm.
And I was in college and I met a good friend in the sorority that I joined and
Yeah.
she also had diabetes, so we like became like instant like best friends.
Oh.
And she like had a pump and like she did all of that and she was like you like should definitely try it, like whatever. So she like really encouraged me to try it and I was like okay, like I felt like, I don't know, I guess at that point in my life, I was more like comfortable with diabetes. And I felt like that was something that I could do. Whereas in like my childhood, I felt like I was just trying to hide it. I did injections for probably like 10 or 11 years of my life.
How
And
was that for
then
you?
it
Like,
was fine during the time. I mean, it's
mhm.
never like great.
I'm terrified of needle. Okay, this is gonna sound awful, but when I was a kid, okay, it's funny, but it's not funny. Love my mom. She was a young mom. And sometimes I like look back on some of the things that she said and I'm like, girl, why did you say that? But I like was a very picky eater when I was a kid. And I'm 100% addicted to sugar. Like, I love anything sweet, anything chocolate, love that. So, when I was a kid, like, I would always go for desserts and stuff. Like, I wouldn't eat all my food, but I would want dessert. And I would always say that I had like a second stomach. I'd be like, oh, I'm full from dinner, but I have a second stomach in it. Like, I can eat dessert. So, I was afraid of needles, like, very afraid. And my mom would be like, you're gonna get diabetes if you keep eating like that. Like, you have to stop eating like that. You're gonna get diabetes. And I didn't know what diabetes was when I was a kid. And then she was like, you have to give yourself shots every day. So, and she used it as like a scary thing to
Oh my
me.
gosh, that's crazy.
So I have been terrified of getting diabetes my whole life, like
Yeah.
literally, and like having to like poke
Oh my
yourself. Like,
gosh.
I don't know. I very proud of you for for
Yeah.
doing injections for so long
I
because
think I just like did it because, it's like you have to do what you have to do to survive
you
basically. And like,
do.
um, I don't know, I guess I got over it. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it
Even
was,
with like a continuous glucose monitor though, like you're still, how does that even work? Like I know obviously you have to like push it on, so it does poke you, but you don't have to.
yeah. Yeah, it's just like it has like essentially a little needle like in the site that's like
Yeah.
drawing blood, and it's like doing it within the sensor. But yeah, like you're still getting like poked. Like I mean, like I have two sites. Like my insulin pump, there's a site for that, and it's like a little tiny tube that's
Yeah.
inside of me for insulin, obviously, and then the CGM obviously is a site as well. So
Okay. And then, but it's not, you're not poking, like when you did insulin injections for like that long period of your life, how often would you have to, does it depend like on the day or?
yeah, it depends on the day. I mean, because I was doing like everything like manually. Like now, like the
Yeah.
difference between having a pump and a CGM, like I have now, CGM stands for continuous glucose monitor, by the way. I
Thank
feel like I
you.
just like say it because like in the diabetes community, we just like,
Yeah,
say the
yeah.
short word for it. But I can have so much more control now with like
Hmm.
that technology because my CGM is like Bluetooth connected to my pump and they're like working together to kind of help with where my blood sugar is at. So like
Yeah.
I'm still doing a lot for management, obviously, but it's like I can see my blood sugar at any time just by looking at a screen. I can deliver insulin from my phone or from my
Hmm.
insulin pump like very easily. And I can kind of like prevent things a lot easier. Like if I see that my blood sugar is at like 100, which is a normal in range, but
Hmm.
it's like dropping pretty fast, like
Yeah.
going towards a low blood sugar, then I could eat something then and try to like prevent it from actually going low. Whereas like with injections and finger pricking, it's very like you get one piece of data. Like I prick my
Yeah.
finger, I can see that I'm at 120 like in the moment, but I have no idea if it's going up, if it's going down, if it's staying level, that kind of thing.
Do you kind of have to wait for like symptoms too, or were you just like finger pricking throughout the day? Or would you be like, oh, I kind of feel symptomatic, so I'm gonna see like where
It
I
was
am.
a lot of finger pricking. Like
Okay.
I mean, just because like if you think about how many times like you eat food throughout the day, and also I
Hmm.
like love snacking, like
Hmm.
I like eating like all day, like which is not great for like being diabetic just in terms of like management, but
Yeah.
it so like every time I would eat, for the most part I was checking my blood sugar like before I would eat because
Hmm.
that plays a part in how much insulin I would take for the meal. Like I would think about how many carbs the meal was and then where my blood sugar's at. So if like my blood sugar's a little bit higher, I would take a little bit more insulin, that kind of thing. So you're
Yeah.
kind of like doing calculations like that. But yeah, I was probably pricking my finger like 6 or 7 times a day depending, and then like taking shots probably at least 5 times a day,
Yeah.
because it was like for every meal. And then like if I did check my blood sugar in the middle of the day and it was high, like I would take an injection for that or
Hmm.
whatever. So
Yeah. Okay. How did you deal with, like the mental toll of all of this? Like when you're a kid and then even I personally, like obviously I can't speak for you in these situations, but I feel like for me, completely different condition. But I even like I have to say no to things a lot of times because I'm in pain or, like I'm having like I feel like I could do everything right, but I'll still have a flare up and just things that like I can't control. And
Mhm.
I, for a long time, felt like my condition like ruled my life and it, like really messed with my mental health. I don't know, like, did you ever feel like that? Like in college and high school, you're like, oh, I can't eat that, or I have to, like give myself insulin before I eat that or stuff like that. You just, a lot more thought goes into it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. I feel that 100%. I felt that like I mean, I feel that every day, honestly, and like that's why I talk about mental health and diabetes so much because it has had like just the biggest impact on me ever. And
Yeah.
like there are so many layers to it that have made it difficult to deal with just in general. Like there's like an aspect of control and like on one hand, I am trying to manage my diabetes and I am the person that's like in control of this. I have to take the insulin, I have to like count the carbs, I have to do all these things. But on the other hand, like I can't control everything in my body. I don't know. I don't have all of the information. Like I don't
Hmm.
know what hormones are running through me right now. I don't know like the stress levels that are affecting it. I don't know if I'm getting sick. Like all
Yeah.
these different things and that does take like a big mental toll to like have to try to manage something and like just like the frustration of like not always getting it right
Yeah.
is like I deal with that daily. Like that's a big part of it. And I mean, then there's like so many things on top of that. Like in childhood, I think that like I don't think I dealt with any of the mental health aspect of it at all. I think that I just like pushed it away. I didn't really like at the time I didn't have the resources. I didn't really like have the support on the mental health side. Like I had a lot of great support in help with managing it and that kind of thing, but
Hmm.
I just like I didn't have like a therapist, I didn't have therapy, I didn't have like a doctor or someone telling me like, oh, this is like the toll it can take on your mental health. Like these are the tools that you should have or that kind of thing. I just did not have that at all. So it was really difficult. Like I think that going into college is when I like started to realize like how much it really affected me,
Yeah.
just everything about it, like how hard it is dealing with it all the time, like feeling alone in it, not having support in it, all these things that like all these just different like layers with diabetes.
Hmm.
And then that kind of like came to a head in college. Like I just felt so terrible about it and I felt like I just wasn't able to mentally handle it. Like I didn't have I just didn't have like the tolerance for like when I would have like high blood sugars and like they were unexplained and like wouldn't go down. Like I just could not deal with that mentally. And then I would like
Hmm.
spiral into these like terrible thought patterns about like how much it sucked and just like really dark places with
Hmm.
diabetes. And luckily, in Grand Rapids, there was a therapist at my endocrinology office, and she also had type 1 diabetes. So she was there as like a therapist for like for the diabetics in the office and
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
That
So
helps.
yeah, so
Mhm.
I like that was the first time that I ever went to therapy ever at all. And I like since I was struggling with it so bad, I like had set up an appointment and then from there I had like I don't know, probably like 10 sessions or something like that. But I don't know, that's just like kind of when I realized like how much it affected me because like I had never I had never talked about how diabetes affected me. And like I literally
Yeah.
went to those therapy sessions and like just bawled my eyes out and I was like barely able to get like a sentence out about them
Aw.
because I like never was able to like process
Yeah,
all
like
of
you don't
the
even know you were
things.
feeling that way until you
Exactly.
started talking about it and you're like, oh yeah, I feel like shit. This is
Yeah.
not.
Then I was like, oh, like there's actually like a lot of like pain and like things that
Hmm.
I like need to work through that I just never really had the chance to work through
Yeah.
when I was younger.
Do you feel like you went through burnout?
I mean, sometimes I feel that way. I think that like
Hmm.
there's always kind of an element of burnout. It depends. Like during
Yeah.
that time, like definitely yes. Like I was just like so mad at diabetes and like angry about having it and angry about having to
Yeah.
deal with it that like yeah, like I just felt like I didn't want to like do it anymore, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, I haven't felt that way in a long time. I think that there's always like a little bit where I'm like where there's like certain weeks or certain days where like I'm really annoyed
Hmm.
about it. And I'm just like, what the heck? Like I don't
Yeah.
want to
There's always
deal with
hard
this.
days.
Yeah.
Hmm. I always say that having a chronic illness, especially something like diabetes, where there's just so much like I don't even know. I don't want to say like physical manipulation, but like kind of like I don't know what else to say other than that. Like you have to do something with it. Like you don't really have a choice. You have
Hmm.
to. Um, I always say that like having a chronic condition is kind of like having another full-time job. Like you can't really ever take any time away from it. Because if you do, you will reap the consequences of it and then you just feel worse. So
Hmm.
it's like you can't run away from your body feeling like shit.
Yeah.
And
That's like a
that's
part
really
that like
hard.
really sucks about it too, because it's just like when you're already feeling like so down about it or so bad or like
Hmm.
you're like really in a bad place with it, it's like, well, you still need to look at your blood sugar graph and you still need to count the carbs
Yeah, you
for
still have to
dinner.
do it.
So it's just like annoying. Like you just can't escape it.
Yeah, there really is no escaping it. I know I had a really hard time with that for a long time. Like when I was in grad school, I this was literally a year ago, year and a half ago, but for the 2 years that I was in grad school, like I 100% went through burnout with my endometriosis. I was like, I just can't do this anymore. I was like I had so many doctor's appointments all the time for like different things. And I was trying to like teach. I had an internship. Grad school is hard. And I was like, I just can't, like, something has to go away. So I'm going to choose this. Like, I just don't want to deal with it anymore. And that obviously didn't help anything. So
Hmm.
it just
Yeah.
all came back, like, well, not came back, but like the symptoms didn't go away. And then they were worse because I wasn't actually taking care of myself. So,
Yeah. And I think it just makes you like resent it more because it's like,
mhm,
I don't know, like you are all like, for me, anyways, like I just get so like mad about it sometimes where
mhm.
I'm just like mad about my like at my body for like doing this and just like mad at life that I like have to deal with this and like other people don't kind of thing.
Yeah.
But then like also like you said, like if you ignore it, then it like comes back swinging. And it's like,
Yeah. And
and
it's
then I'm
like,
like more
oh,
mad.
yeah. It's like, oh, you thought that you could be mad?
Yeah.
No, I'm gonna make you way more
Right. It's
mad
like
because
actually
I'm gonna make
there's
it
yeah.
hard.
Yeah. There's nothing you can do. It's like actually you just have to accept this.
Yeah. It's like, no. It's like that, there's like a meme of like, I don't even know how to explain this meme right now. I'm gonna have to find it and like link it for so people can watch it. But it's like a meme where it's like a couple, like a cartoon couple, and it's like the wife is trying to hug the husband or whatever, and he's like, I don't like hugs, and she's like, you're gonna hug me anyway. It's that. It's like your diabetes is like,
Right.
whatever, I'm gonna do it anyways. I don't care if you
Yep.
don't like it.
Just like latches onto you forever and it
Yeah,
never goes
it's like
away.
you can't get rid of me. Um, so how obviously there are good and bad days. How do you like manage on a bad day? Like say that you like just can't control your blood sugar. What do you like walk me through your day? Like what do you do?
I think it depends. I think like sometimes I just try to like fix the situation and I
Mhm.
try to ignore it, but I mean it's really hard to ignore, like especially with technology. Like it's kind there's like two parts to technology, and one side of it is that it's really amazing and that it's really helpful, but the
Mhm.
other side of it is that like it makes it hard to forget about and just like kind of like take a few hours to like not think about diabetes, especially when it's not good, because like I
Yeah.
have my phone like buzzing at me telling me that my blood sugar is high, that it's like
Yeah.
it's like every like 10 minutes it's like telling me that it's high,
Oh my God.
and like then I have my pump also like vibrating telling me that it's high, and it honestly
You're like,
makes me
I
like really
know.
mad. And like the like during those times I'm like I am about to like delete the app right now, because
Yeah.
like I mean that like because that's what I try to do is like I try to just like take extra insulin, and like
Hmm.
maybe if I like have time to like go on a walk, if it's that my blood sugar is like stubbornly high or whatever, I'll do that. But if I can't like if I can't do a lot about it, it just is annoying. Like just
Yeah.
trying to it's just like it just makes me mad sometimes. I'm just like because I'm doing everything that I can and I'm like why
Hmm.
won't this like work kind of thing, but
Do
I don't
you
know.
do you have any like I know this might sound really stupid, but like when you're in those moments, do you have any like I don't know, like mindfulness or like anything that kind of like
Yeah.
helps you calm down? Because I actually have no idea if like stress and anxiety like affects diabetes at all, but I feel like if you're already mad about what's going on, probably isn't helping. Do you get like physical symptoms? Like, do you feel nauseous or like when
I
you're,
mean, sometimes with high blood sugar, I mean, I
yeah,
don't really notice the symptoms with high blood sugar. Like I will sometimes get like dehydrated and like feel kind of
yeah,
like brain fog and that kind of thing. But with like a low blood sugar, I definitely feel it a lot of the times,
mhm,
just like feeling weak and tired and like brain
yeah.
fog again and that
I
kind
mean,
of
that makes
thing.
sense.
But yeah, I mean, I definitely like I am working on a lot of mindfulness because of how much it affects my mental health and how much it affects like my just like my thought processes and that kind of thing. And I don't know, I'm working on like different things with it. Like I right now I'm really just trying not to spiral because that is
Mhm.
a big thing that I do. Like I if I start getting worked up about diabetes, like I will spiral with it and like I will take myself to the absolute worst place with it just thinking like I can't believe I have to live the rest of my life with this. Like this really
Yeah.
sucks. Like I'm so alone. Like I suck at managing. Just like I will
Hmm.
take it so far and make myself feel terrible about it.
Hmm.
And I'm
Hmm.
trying to like realize that like I don't have to do that. Like I can just like even if I'm like thinking bad thoughts about it, like I don't have to like jump on that thought and let it go
Hmm.
further. So it's like things like that. And sometimes I can't, sometimes I feel like I'm already too far in it where I'm like feeling
Yeah.
really mad or whatever. But I just try
That can
not to
be
like,
really hard to like
yeah,
stop yourself in those. Like
yeah.
that,
And
it is hard.
I just like try not to like let it go further. And sometimes I'm just like, whatever. Like today, I'm just going to feel like annoyed about it and mad. Like I'm just going to let myself be
Hmm.
that way. I'm going to try not to make this worse for myself right now. But like, I kind of just like that's just like the day that I'm having right now.
Yeah. And I think that's totally fine too. Like you are 100% allowed to have like bad days. And also you are allowed to feel bad for yourself sometimes. It's just more of like also understanding that you can't feel bad for yourself forever because it's not going to get you anywhere, right? Like
Yeah.
I went through a very similar, and I say that to myself all the time because when I went through my like burnout, um I had a really bad like I guess like victim mentality because I'm like, why did this happen to me? Like, why me?
Hmm.
Like, this isn't fair. Like, all my friends can go do all these things and they don't have to deal with this. Like so much thought goes into it, and I have to, like eat this anti-inflammatory diet. If I eat something weird, my like endometriosis freaks out, and I'm just like, why me? But I allow myself to like have those moments sometimes now, but then I like don't allow myself to ruminate in it too long because it doesn't change anything. Like I will still have this tomorrow. So I'm
Yeah.
like feeling bad for myself. I'm like, yeah, I allow myself to have those moments sometimes, but I'm like, I cannot sit in it because the only person it affects is me. Like my partner doesn't even know that I'm feeling that way. So it doesn't affect him. It doesn't affect the person down the street. Like it literally just affects me. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I went through the exact same thing like when I was like in college and I was having just like a really terrible time with it. It was the exact same thing of like just feeling like such a victim and like
mhm.
everything bad happens to me kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I feel like I like stayed in that for a really long time before I was able to get out of it. But yeah, same thing as you. Like I think I still have that sometimes, but I try to remember that like it's not doing me any good
Hmm.
to feel this way. Like I can allow myself to feel that way for like a little bit, but like feeling this way day in and day out is like never it's not gonna like solve the issue. Like I'm
Yeah,
still gonna have
exactly.
diabetes. So
Yeah, we're still gonna be chronically
yeah.
ill. It's
Like
still
why
gonna
make
be here.
myself feel worse about it?
I know. I'm like, I might as well just try to be happy in what I'm
Yeah.
doing.
Right.
I do want to talk about your podcast. So what's the name of your podcast? What do you do?
So my podcast is called Thrivabetic,
I
which
love
is
that.
like diabetic but like thrive together.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so I started it like 3 years ago and I've kind of been like,
Whoa.
yeah, I've had it for a little bit. I've been kind of on and off with it. Like I started out doing it for a bit and then I was kind of like just doing it here and there. And then I'm kind
Hmm.
of back to doing it like more consistently. on like a twice a month basis, I think is what I'm doing right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I started a while ago just because, like I said, like I've had such a huge experience of like learning about myself and learning about my mental health and my like thought processes when
Yeah.
it comes to diabetes in life. And I've just like learned so much. So yeah, I kind of just like started it so that like I could connect with other diabetics in the community and like talk about just like a bunch of different topics when it comes to like life and diabetes, with people who were like kind of experts in their field,
Hmm.
whether it was like about diet or exercise or hormones, that kind of thing. And
Yeah.
then I really just have talked a lot about like my mental health as well and just how I'm dealing with life and diabetes.
I love that. I'll be sure to link that in the show notes too, so people can go listen and learn more about diabetes and you. And um,
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's great that you have a podcast for that, and it's people need to learn more about it. And speaking on that, I do want to talk about like some misconceptions. I know we like touched on a couple of them, but what are like, I guess, what are like top three, 3 to 5 common misconceptions that you get frequently?
Oh man. Well, yeah, there's so many.
I know we
Um,
talked about like sugar, but
yeah, there's a lot about, I mean, the main one is that like people say all the time, like you said, like when your mom was telling like talking to you about like when you were eating desserts, all the time I hear this like so often, just like in random settings, of people saying like you're gonna get diabetes from that. And
yeah. Or
that,
even like like I feel like it's like a catchphrase now. Like
yeah,
people are
no, it
just
is.
like, "Oh my God, I can't eat that. I'm gonna get diabetes." Or like,
Yep.
"Eat too much of that and you're gonna get diabetes." Like it's just something people say.
Yes. Yeah. And it's just like really annoying to me. Like, I
Do you ever like stop them and you're like, "That's not true."
yeah, I've honestly like done that many times. I'm like, I have diabetes. And
Yeah.
they're like, what? I'm like, yeah. Like, don't say that. That's not true. But I don't know.
Yeah.
It depends. Like I have gotten better at the misconceptions of diabetes in
Hmm.
general, because I think that on one hand, it does make me really mad and annoyed about how misunderstood it is. But on the other hand, it's just like people just aren't educated about it. And
Hmm.
I try to remember that like there are a lot of other chronic illnesses that I am not educated on. And like if it was the same situation, I may be saying like ignorant things like that as well.
Hmm.
So for the most part, I just try to educate people on like what diabetes is and
Yeah.
how that's just like a very ignorant statement. And there are tons of people living with diabetes. So it's just like not a good thing to say. Like whether or not like diabetes is somewhat lifestyle related,
Yeah.
it doesn't, it's just like an ignorant thing to say. Like there's so many people that
Hmm.
live with diabetes and it doesn't have anything to do with what they eat, whether that's type 1 or type 2 or the many other types of diabetes.
Right. Yeah. Um, I know. I feel the same way about endo too. Like I hear people say like the most common thing with endo is that it's just a bad period or like it's a period disorder, and like in reality it's a full body inflammatory disorder. It's actually like not even in your uterus, like it's endometrial tissue outside of your uterus. So I'm like, it doesn't actually have anything to do with your period. Like I can we stop saying that? Can we stop saying it's just like bad period pains? And I
Right.
used to get really like worked up about that, but I have now like tried to reframe my mindset into like if I hear people saying like things that are just wrong, I it's a great space for me to educate people in like a calm and polite way. But like, you know,
Yeah.
it's a great
Yeah. And
it's great.
I think when it like comes from someone who experiences it, like I think that people take it to heart more. Like they're like, oh, like maybe I shouldn't just
Hmm.
like say something like that when like, because in that situation it's kind of uncomfortable. It's like you're
Hmm.
talking about something in a way that's ignorant, and then like the person next to you deals with it and they're like,
Yeah.
hey, like that's not what's happening.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think obviously that's like a big one, is like the food and sugar and that kind of thing. Another big one too is just that like people think that diabetics, like if we have technology, if we have like an insulin pump or a continuous glucose monitor, we have the devices that
Hmm.
that does like the work for us,
Yeah.
when there's still so much like management that goes into diabetes. Like it's not like we just like click a button and we're like good to go for the day. Like there's still so much that like goes into like carb counting and just like looking at your blood sugar, and you still have to do a lot of things like very manually. Even though the technology does help a lot, it's not
Mhm.
doing the full job.
How often do you have to change your glucose monitor? Is it different for different ones or?
For the, I mean, so the one that I have the Dexcom,
Hmm.
and that one is changed every 10 days, which is really nice. I don't know what the other ones do. I feel like
Yeah.
it's probably around the same amount of time. The my insulin pump is every 3 days, and I think that's pretty common for most insulin pumps, just because like you can develop scar tissue, and it's just like not good to have
Oh
it
yeah,
there
that makes
for a longer
sense.
period of time.
Yeah, I feel like that's also like maybe another misconception because like I actually didn't know until recently that you have an insulin pump and the continuous glucose monitor. I thought it was the same thing, like all in one. So I actually was really confused why I would be seeing like two people or I'd be seeing people with like two different like devices and I'm like, why do they have two? So I feel like that might also be,
Yeah,
a misconception. People may not know that they do different things.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, because they do very different things. Like
Mhm.
one is measuring your blood sugar and one is giving you medication.
Yeah. Yeah. And then with your Dexcom, wait, hold on, you literally just said that. You just said what this was. The Dexcom is the insulin.
No, Dexcom is the continuous
Wow.
glucose monitor.
Okay, got it.
And then my the insulin pump that I have is the Tandem T Slim.
Okay, so your insulin pump. You will it can you like set it up to give you insulin? Like say again, like I have no idea how any of this stuff works.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
Say you're trending a certain way and can you like set it to like hit a certain blood level and like automatically give you insulin or do
Yeah.
you just kind of like or does it just alert and you're like okay I have to press a button and it'll give me.
Yeah, so there's actually a lot of different settings in an insulin pump, and
Hmm.
there is an algorithm for the pump as well.
Wow.
So there's so every single person is going to be different with how much insulin they
Hmm.
take and how much they need, that kind of thing. But there's a thing called a basal rate, which
Yeah.
is just a slow drip, essentially. Like it's just how much you need in a 24-hour period over that period of time.
Yeah.
And there's like a setting for that. So like I have a basal rate for the daytime, and I also have a basal rate for the nighttime, which are different.
Right.
So there's like things like that. And then there's also like my in range, my like blood sugar ideal like in range. So
Yeah.
it tries to keep me between I think like 100 and maybe like 160 or something.
Yeah.
And like I think it has a target blood sugar of 120, I want to say. So
Okay.
it like it does calculations based on like how much insulin is already in my system
Got
and
it.
where my blood sugar is at and where it's trending. So if I don't have any insulin on board and my blood sugar is going up a little bit based on my specific like insulin rates, it will
Hmm.
give me a correction bolus
Hmm.
to bring it down. So there's a lot of
Okay.
different settings with it. And yeah, there's a lot of different things you can do with it, which is actually really cool. You can set like an activity mode
Hmm.
so that like it won't give you as much insulin as it normally would. Like there's a lot of different things that you can do
Yeah,
with the
there's so
pump.
much math that goes into it too, because like it changes based off of like how much activity you do during the day too, right? So
Yeah,
like
just
if
I
you're
mean,
doing different exercising or something.
yeah, there's just like a lot to think about, really. I mean,
Hmm.
like for me, because I have to think about like a lot of different factors. Like if I'm eating lunch, but I know that I'm like going on a hike after lunch, then like I would consider that with how much insulin I would give myself. Or like if I'm
Yeah.
going on a hike after work, like maybe I would set activity mode like an hour before the hike so that like I don't have as much insulin in my system for the hike, that
Hmm.
kind of thing. And then like I don't know, there's a lot of other factors, just like my where my period is at and like
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
phases, that kind of thing. If I'm more stressed, if I'm gonna be sitting all day, if I'm
Hmm.
traveling, like there's so
Yeah,
many
if
things
you're
to think
sick
about.
too, like if your
Yeah.
immune system is lower. I know there's like so many things that go into it. I just like side topic. I worked in dialysis like all through undergrad. So a lot of our patients had diabetes. obviously like everything was set up by the doctor, but we would have to give, like insulin boluses and a whole bunch of stuff. It was preset, but it would also like if people came in with really low blood sugar or really high, sometimes they would come in with like insanely high blood sugars and we're like, whoa, like how are
Yeah.
you? Like what's happening right now? Okay, looking ahead, this is probably like a couple more questions for you. Looking ahead, what are like your hopes for diabetes in the future? Do you have any like I'm sure that you can't even like imagine. Like I know the technology it just keeps getting like crazier, but what is that?
Yeah.
Like what do you want out of all of
I
this?
mean, I think like obviously every diabetic wants a cure. Like that would be great. But honestly, it's not like that isn't really what I think about because it does seem pretty far off and it doesn't
Hmm.
seem like that's just like not the thing that I'm focused on, I guess. Like what I really like love about like the diabetes community is just like how much information we're able to like share within
Yeah.
our community and just like being able to support each other and like provide resources that like I never had when I was growing up. And I think like I mean just like specifically obviously I talk a lot about mental health and I think that that's kind of like my part in it is like
Yeah.
I just never knew the ways that diabetes could affect my mental health and like I just want other people to like be able to have like my podcast or my Instagram as like a resource and just a place to like feel like validated and supported because I think that like I just had so many years of like not understanding why I felt the way that I felt, not feeling like I could relate to anyone, just not feeling validated in that,
Hmm.
and not having a community. So
Yeah.
like just being someone where like I can share my experience and what I've learned and like how I like try to be better at it or like just how it affects me in general. I think that's like so helpful to people that don't have that. Like even like I
Yeah.
just needed someone growing up to say that like they like get really mad and angry about like blood sugars that they can't
Yeah.
control like
Just
because they
validate your
feel so out of
feelings.
control like yeah just like feeling like you can relate to someone that's like going through that too and it's like a normal thing and
Yeah.
there's like support and resources out there for that.
Yeah, that's so important, especially like type 1 diabetes when you are so young, like thinking about like little Kate, like little 10-year-old Kate, and you're just like, I don't understand what's happening to my body. So I feel like
Yeah,
that is just so important. So you're doing a lot of like really good work and keep doing that.
thank you. Yeah, that's like really
Um,
what I want. It's just like
yeah,
people who like don't understand what's happening to them to like have people to look
feel
to
less alone.
yeah, exactly.
Um, so where can people find you?
I am on Instagram and TikTok at Thrivabetic.
Hmm.
And then I have my podcast, which is Thrivabetic, Thriving with Diabetes, I think is in the title as well.
Hmm.
And then I have a website too, thrivabetic.com.
Ooh.
But I really have not updated it in a while. So there's like there are some blog posts on there that you can read that's basically like same topics as my podcast episodes. And
Hmm.
I think there's some other stuff on there as well. But um,
Okay.
yeah, those are the main ones.
Okay. Yeah, I will put that all in the show notes for people too, so they can just click on it while they're listening. Thank you for coming on the pod. This was
Yeah,
fun.
thank you so much. This was so much fun.
You know that curl up in a ball kind of pain that makes breathing even hard? I do, and some days gets it. Their products are designed by people who actually understand period pain, and they're even made by people with endometriosis. All about natural pain relief that actually works. Whether it's the relief cream, the really cozy heating pad, or their castor oil stick, Some Days has pretty much something for everyone. And the best part, these products are created to support your body on all your days, not just the really rough ones. You don't have to use the period relief cramp cream just for your period cramps. You can also use it for back pain, Charlie horses. I know that I use it a lot of times for my lower back pain. You can check out Some Days and use code Chronic Chronicles for 15% off your purchase site-wide. Thank you for joining us today on the Chronic Chronicles. If you would like to hear more from Kate, please be sure to check out her podcast, Thrivabetic. Also, if you enjoyed today's episode, please rate and review this episode. The more ratings and reviews that we get, the more likely we are to connect with a larger community of people like you. You can also catch up with me anytime on Instagram at Chronic Chronicles Pod. And remember, you're not alone on your journey. I'll talk to you next Monday.